Good evening and welcome to the June meeting of the Granville Schools Board of Education. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll please.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Wolf?
Here.
Ms. Deeds? Here. Mr. Crum? He's absent. And Ms. Shaw? Here. Thank you.
There is one addendum to the agenda, which is moved by line 11. If I can get a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Okay, so one of the people in the actual agenda, consent agenda, has been removed from that agenda and added to the addendum. So there's kind of a little bit of a shift.
Okay. Roll.
Ms. Deeds? Aye. Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye. Okay, accommodations. So usually during the, regular school year, this is packed, as we have hundreds of kids that we're nominating for accommodations, but tonight's really special. So one of our awardees couldn't be here because of an issue that came up, but we get to recognize Brian Costa. So Brian's not unfamiliar to this room and to this organization, but I think everyone's going to agree why he's getting this award. It's really a great recognition for him. So the OHSAA Award of Excellence is presented each year to a person within the community who's consistently exemplifies good sportsmanship, demonstrates positive values, and reflects the high level of ethics and integrity in dealing with students within the interscholastic athletic program. We are proud to recognize Brian Costa for being selected for this award. So that's the formal aspect. Now I get to go off screen. So when I was introducing Brian to a couple of people in the room, I said he's our GRD representative. He helps us as our liaison with the Granville Police Department. He's got like 12 kids. He's constantly in our schools as the liaison. He gives countless hours to the athletic department as well. But overall, he just is one of the most engaged community members I've ever met in any community. And he does it with a smile on his face and a calm, level head. So, Brian, I am very honored to give you this award of excellence and thank you publicly for all the work that you do outside of the building, inside the building, at 12 o'clock at night when you're talking to me, and all the good times that we share. So, yes, a little tongue-in-cheek there. But this is an award that I think you deserve. So, congratulations. Janelle will ask me for that tomorrow. Thank you. Better do that.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Brian.
And you're allowed to leave because you're probably on duty right now. So.
No, I just came in. Stuff I gotta do.
Yeah. Thanks,
Thank
Brian. Now we're going to recognize our athletic director, Josh Duvall. He's going to be here in August as well. But each year, the Central Ohio Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association recognizes and honors individuals within the Central District for their dedication to student athletes, schools, community, and the communities that they serve. The Athletic Director of the Year is presented, by the way, I have photos. I forgot to do that. So that's Brian in action, which is awesome. He's always in our schools.
Wait, I'll take a picture.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Come back, kids, come. There you go. Okay, turn the lights on.
You need
But here, you can't see it up there, but it's right there. Athletic Director of the Year, Josh Cavallo. The Athletic Director of the Year is presented to individuals who exemplify the highest standards of their profession and who, through their influence on the lives of young people under their direction, has made a significant contribution to their school and community. So Josh is going to be here in August when he talks a little bit about the athletic grant and some of the work that we're doing with mental health and our student athletes with OSU, in partnership with OSU. They're going to be here as well. So look forward to that in August, but wanted to make sure that you could look real fast because it's going to blink.
I'm not turning them off.
Athletic Director of the Year, Josh Duvall. And that concludes my report, and Brittany, good luck.
Don't you do policy?
Oh, I do. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
I might as well just stay right here. But it's a short list. I need my notes over here. All right, so OSBA is our board policy document group, and they have recommended a couple of revisions to some policies, and then they've recommended that we rescind one other policy. So the revised policies are related to minutes, District Records Commission and records retention and disposal, and then student absences and excuses. So the first one is related to minutes, and that is to more closely match the language in Ohio Revised Code 121.22 and 3319.26. And it is really just related to how Brittany prepares the minutes and you approve them. So it aligns with our current practice, and we're just updating the policy. The second item is related to District Records Commission. They just removed some of the language associated with records retention. It used to be data and records retention, but it's to clarify the Commission's responsibility for adopting and revising a records retention schedule and disposing of records. And as you know, the Commission is Brittany, Thomas as board president, and myself. And then the disposal of obsolete records. And then student absence and excuses. It really is, the main change is now that COVID has not become, or it has been eliminated as an emergency, it's removed that language from the board policy. So it is really related to COVID and medical excuses. Okay?
It's really behind us.
Yes.
Wow.
And then the policy that we're rescinding is related to data and records retention. Again, it has alignment with the Ohio Electronic Records Commission and their guidance in board policy. So the OSBA has said it's irrelevant at this point because it's included in other board policies, including the one in District Records Commission. So they said that that could be removed. And again, because it has an R, it's really a regulation that we follow versus a board policy, but they're recommending that we remove that. And that, then, any questions? Now that concludes my portion. Brittany gets to go.
Now it's the good stuff.
Yes, on the financial.
Oh, that way we have the boring stuff over. Okay, we have our monthly financial report through May when we did the forecast, so a lot of this was taken into account with the forecast and that presentation, so not a lot to highlight this month. So first starting with the cash balance, we're about $4.2 million above where we were last May, and that's largely due to our carryover cash balance from the prior year. We are on the downward trend as far as cash balance goes throughout the year, which will continue until usually late July, August, when we get our first property tax advance payment from the county auditor. For revenue for the month of May, we had a little bit of a timing variance still on the state revenue compared to last year because of that implementation of the funding formula. And then all the revenue is up this year due to the investment earnings that we are seeing. Year to date on local taxes, we have an increase in the income tax as well as a slight increase in property tax, which we see just, again, a reminder, small increases in property tax only on new construction in the inside village. And then the timing of the state funding formula will continue through June until we're wrapped up with fiscal year end. We'll see that variance, and then all other revenue again includes a higher advance payments for ESSER funds due to that large amount that we had to cover at the end of last fiscal year.
Does it give us some new information on the income tax base of the Granville Schools District, or is that information we had last year, year over year? Did we get an income tax payment so we know how much increased over last year?
So our last income tax payment was in April.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Brittany, clarification for me.
Yeah.
When you say local taxes due to an increase in the income tax, is that an increase in payment?
Yes. Yes, our
That
income.
we receive, the income tax is
Rate.
not.
The same
Income
rate.
tax revenue increased over prior year.
Okay, I just wanted to.
1%, I'm trying to remember what the April number was. 10% or something like that.
Well, so for the month of April is different than year to date. So
Yeah.
year to date was about 5%.
5.3.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. And for expenditures for the month of May, really normal increases across all three line items that we would typically see, just inflation, base salary increases, those types of things. And then year-to-date, salary and benefits is where we're seeing the largest increase, which of course makes sense with base increases, steps, as well as additional staff that we added due to enrollment growth. And then all other expenses is that HVAC project. The portion that was not covered by ESSER funds is falling into general fund here. And that's the kind of variance that we're hoping to avoid with the capital projects fund that we'll talk about later on in the agenda. Yes.
So where in the graph are we looking at the HVAC project?
So it's a difference in the yellow portion here.
Got it.
So that increased pretty significantly, and then the actual value of that was almost $700,000 more.
Thank you.
So COVID-related funds, we received almost $3 million in total over the last, going on almost 4 years, well, this will go into 4 years. So this includes how we've spent all of our funding, or how we plan to spend all of it. This next slide is showing those sources that we have remaining that are not fully spent. But I will note the ESSER 2 and ARP, IDEA, those both have to be spent by this September. So that summer intervention, we're trying to get those timesheets in to get those people paid. And for the behavior specialists, we're trying to get the ESC to bill us in advance for this upcoming year so that we can have that paid off and utilize those grant funds. Because typically they bill through the foundation, so it's spread over the entire year. So just trying to best utilize those remaining funds. Then we have our cash reconciliation, and I do have just one more slide related to the athletic complex. So this is something that we received in June, but since we're near the end, I just wanted to slip this in really quick because it does relate to a later agenda item. So this, again, is the repayment of the private portion of the athletic complex project. and showing how those donations have come in to reimburse the district for those funds that were spent up front. So the amount of the receivable balance that remains is just over $67,000. So that's excellent. We knew it would take this long. We have a little less than a year to collect the rest of that. So just wanted to highlight that, as there is an agenda item related to the return of advance. So we report it into this project fund and then give it back to the general fund. So that's that process that you'll vote on later in the agenda.
And that $67,000, that just kind of delays in some of the four-year commitment monies, or is there any kind of other overview from?
So it's not-
about where that comes
It's
from,
not
or is that
delays
normal?
necessarily,
Where that
but people pledged over 4 years, and
Okay.
some of them came in earlier on in the project, and some of them came later.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Right. Great. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Okay.
And just to add to that, excuse me, there are people asking if they can still contribute too.
Yeah.
So
And-
I feel confident that that's not going to be a problem at all.
Yep, that's great.
And just to remind, people watching at home, all three of you, that this was a public-private partnership. The public side of the equation was really for safety and accessibility of our new athletic stadium, and the athletic boosters portion, or the community portion, was funded by a challenge grant, and then also by donations from the community to meet that challenge. And so it was really a 50-50 public-private split to get a significant upgrade to our athletic facility that we enjoy on a regular basis. We're able to host a lot of different activities there that generate revenue as well. So, perfect example of a public-private partnership. And it's good to see this coming to fruition. One more year.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Okay, at this time, we've reached the point in our agenda where the board welcomes public comment. Anyone that wishes to make a comment may step to the microphone, state your name and address, and speak for up to 5 minutes. Okay, seeing no one here locally, I'll remind you all that we welcome public comment in email or phone calls or any other way. Feel free to reach out to us. We really value the community's input. The next item on the agenda was board discussion. There's nothing of major substance to discuss in terms of issues and items and so forth, but on here is just a board reflection on the end of the year and this past school year. And so I'd welcome any of your comments and thoughts about how the school year went as we wrap it up and look forward to next year.
And I'll just preempt the conversation slightly by talking about that most of the data that we're getting as far as last year's performance is trending very well. Obviously it's still in its initial stage, but all the indications are that our students did very well and performed at similar levels that they have in the past. So that's a positive indication of the way that we're trending. I'd also highlight the fact that we did a partnership with several other school districts around self-determined learning, and our students presented to you some of their thoughts about recommendations, and I think that was an excellent indication of, and some of the other student presentations are an excellent indication of when we empower our students to take agency over their learning, they're never going to disappoint us. They do a great job. And one of those other aspects that we've been piloting and building on is the experiential mastermind class and some of that work, and I think it's been a fantastic opportunity for our students in the middle school. So just getting your mind primed for grade. Yeah. So.
Any highlights that you've noticed in the year? Well, it seems like it was a big year, and COVID was a long time ago at this point, but it was kind of our first real normal year, right? And that felt great. And you mentioned, we'll have more details when official test scores come out and things like that. There's a lot of places in the country that are really struggling still and have had, not great results from some of their students and things like that. And I'm just really proud that doesn't really reflect us here. I think throughout the pandemic and this last year especially, we've done a fantastic job, right? And it reflects in the results of the kids. whether it be the academic results on test scores, which is one metric, but certainly not the most important one, or whether it be all the other stuff that the students seem to do, right? You know, back to normal and doing fantastic in athletics and extracurricular, you know, our band and our theater programs and our arts programs and things like that are just rocking, right? So it just feels good that we're still going on all cylinders. And I think the community recognizes that as well. And that was a big highlight for me was passing the renewal of the levy, right, to give us stable funding for the next 5 years. That was, you know, a really important milestone. We've talked a lot about growth at Intel this last year, right? And a year ago, I was, you know, really worried and really concerned and really wondering what the future would hold in store. But it seems like when we came together as a community and we have this task force with, you know, dozens of people that have volunteered on it, and we've kind of seen the dynamics of the communities around us as well as our own, right? I see a much clearer path forward, right? And how that plays out over the next year or 2 or 5 or 10 or 20, right? We'll see, and there will continue to be some growing pains, but I think that Granville as a community, extended community, and certainly the school district will come out shining. Right, and I don't exactly know what the path is for that, and it's gonna be, there's some challenging decisions and discussions, but I think that this growth is gonna play really well into our strategy and our kind of plans of being excellent education. So, those are some good things. You know, I think that one thing that has been a challenge is hiring and personnel, right? Anybody knows a bus driver, let us know. We could use bus drivers. But also, you know, at many levels, right, especially in the administration, there's been a lot of dynamics and things like that, and I'm really proud of the people that we found and we're bringing in to fill some important roles, because that leadership and the stability in it is really critical. So we've managed that as well, and that's a lot of our agenda this evening with a lot of hires and things like that that have been dynamic over the last couple of weeks as we've started to pull those people in, but I think we've got the team in place too. So that's just my quick comments and things like that. Anybody else have thoughts about Intel or the school year, the sports or anything?
Well, so I started as a board member in January of 2020. So this has felt like the first, I've learned a ton. I mean, I continue to learn every single day. I really enjoyed it. But this particular school year has felt like, as a board member, has been the most fun, because I've been hearing about education and about student projects and about a lot of information from Jeff on a high level, Mr. Brown on a high level about education. And so that's been kind of great. You know, those first couple years were a little rough. So yeah, now we're back to really considering education and what does strong education look like? And what does the future of really strong education look like? And I don't feel like I've been able to engage in that way until this year.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah.
Something that jumped out to me, it was at the end of the year, and it's going into next year, and Mr. Brown made reference to it. Mr. Duvall will be here next week to talk about the mental health initiative. I had an opportunity to go to the initial meeting they had, and I think it's going to be a wonderful partnership with Ohio State. They're, I guess I call them their liaison. She's terrific and excited. The speaker they brought in was unbelievably honest and frank about his mental health challenges, and I thought it was, he's only 22, and I thought he really related with our students, and it was great. I mean, the kickoff to it, I'm really excited to see how this goes forward into the next school year. And it's just another example, I think, of how Granville schools show initiative and are willing to look at the whole student. And I really appreciate a community member securing a grant so we could do this. And it was something that was important to them. Not that just student athletes' mental health is important, but I think it's a really great foundation. And my understanding is there's almost 200 students that have signed up to be involved. I think a big concern is, what do we do if more kids want to be? And if that's the problem, that's wonderful. So I'm really looking forward to Mr. Duvall's presentation and seeing how that moves forward. Because it's not only for student athletes, but coaches and parents as well. And working with our administration and our counseling staff. So I think it's going to be a really exciting program, and I look forward to that as it goes forward.
Both of my children went to that presentation as well, and I asked delicately what they thought. They were both impressed.
Good.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a good thing for our kids.
I have to say, I'm really impressed that of a $2 million amount, we're down to 67,000.
Mhm.
That's unbelievable turnaround in such a short period of time.
That's an excellent example.
Good. And I think, you're good. Thanks for bringing up that program. I think the mental health thing is going to continue to be focused all across the board in all of our buildings and things like that. And I've seen a couple of things that we're doing just recently along that ways that are in a positive direction. And also just reflect on the ELM. That was a great class, and just kind of this whole, student-defined learning is an exciting, hopefully, preview of what we're going to do more of in the future, things like that. We've seen some first things. I just love the presentations by the students and stuff. The more of that we get, the more engaged they get, the better the results will help we measure those.
Right, it sounds like the mental health work will also be not driven by the students by any means, but I don't know, kind of pushed forward a little bit by the students. I mean, they're signing up to do it. It is important to teenagers right now that their mental health is addressed, especially around academics, I think, in Granville, because Granville is a high-pressure environment in that regard. And so I think we can continue to balance those things together, on one hand, really focus on our high-performing students and their academics and those pieces of education, but then also remembering that kids need support and they are kids and they need us to look after their mental health. I mean, as parents, as community members, as teachers, that's still a really big component.
Well, and I'd just like to highlight the fact that our approach is pedagogical. So you can address the needs of students' mental health through the pedagogical approaches that you can implement in schools. And sometimes the approach isn't the Band-Aid, getting more services for people to connect to, but really challenging some of the stressors that are being faced and some of the anxiety that's being produced. And I think the students represented that in their presentation. But I think that's a different approach that we're taking that most aren't, is that we're looking at what are the stressors from a pedagogical perspective and how can we do that differently. Because we know if you have all the responsibility and no control, that's toxic stress. So if we can give them control and autonomy, that's going to impact their mental health in a positive way. And I'm convinced of that. And we have empirical evidence to suggest that that's true. So I think it's going to be really intentional moving into next year, and more to come on that. Yeah.
And the other really cool thing, so we were talking, in the finance report, we saw that salary and benefits are increasing with steps, and I think the really important thing to keep in mind is that at Granville, we do such a good job of giving teachers professional development, and obviously you want to keep teachers, you want to retain them, but making sure that they understand that their work is also a craft that they need to improve on. I think that's something that is part of this institution that I hope we can continue as well, and that just seems like a piece of it.
Last little thing that I'll add is Amazon announced $7.8 billion project just last week.
Yeah.
So that's going to happen somewhere in Central Ohio. And we're waiting to hear about the biennial budget. So that's always something that we're always, eagerly awaiting. Not necessarily because we know that we're going to ever get more money. It's how much do we potentially lose. But also, in the recent history, there's been a lot of additional educational requirements that are unfunded through the budget process. And so, every single day we get more and more legislation that requires us to do something else. And that, again, only challenges the organization to keep focused on what we just talked about and maybe not on compliance.
The word is anxiously.
Yes, anxiously, yes, yes. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, that's great.
Appreciate those reflections. Action agenda?
Yes, please.
Okay. 10.01, student handbooks for the 23-24 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so most of the changes are related to Title IX, attendance that we referenced earlier, and DEIS, some of the strategies that we're using for our positive behavioral intervention and support, so standard changes.
Questions? Roll, please.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Thank you. 10.02 is the athletic handbook for the 23-24 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Most of the changes in that area are related to the professional development. In the next two items, it's really the professional development and the mental health requirements that we're building into
Those components.
those components. Yeah, great.
I have one question. The athletic handbook is what parents and student athletes should be reading
Correct.
and be versed on.
Yes. All of our handbooks should be read.
Of course,
Yes.
of course. Yes, I
And
agree.
paid attention to.
I agree.
Yes. Great.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Okay, 10.03 is our athletic coach handbook.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Duvall's doing a great job in this area as well, and shepherding our coaches right and helping them through the process, so I appreciate his support. Yeah. Roll, please.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds? Aye. Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Next item, 10.04, school fees for the 23-24 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so I will just call your attention, it looks like we missed a building, that's intentional. Remember last year, we eliminated the elementary school fees in recognition of high inflation, but also we eliminated the Chromebook fee at the intermediate, middle, and high, and they were about equivalent amounts. So we're continuing that reduction for this year because inflation hasn't changed.
And the activity fee as well? Is that
Activity fee has been,
what they say?
Yeah,
Yeah.
last year we looked
Last
at
year.
that as well, which impacts the middle school and high school.
correct.
So a lot of that was in response to the community and things like that, and the feedback about all these different fees and so forth. So this is the structure we've got, and adjust a little bit for inflation, but not essentially. So, any other questions?
So the fees are generally for specific classes?
Yes.
Yeah. Roll, please.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Thank you. 10.05 is the SOAR Leading and Learning Collaborative Agreement with Patel for Kids.
So moved.
Second.
And we have participated with this program for over, I think, 12 years now. So it's been an excellent opportunity for us to engage with teachers around the state of Ohio and across the nation and learn from one another and the work that we're doing.
That is a fantastic program. Thank all the folks there for their support. Appreciate the work with them. Look forward to continuing. Roll.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
10.06 is the ESCCO agreement for ELL services.
So moved.
Second.
And ELL services and behavioral services. So,
It's great that we've got a lot of ESCs that are willing to support us and things like that. This is just the first of several collaborative groups that we've got that we're engaging with. So thanks for managing that whole bucket of resources that support us in so many ways.
I would say thank Gwen Spence.
Yeah.
She manages all of those relationships
Yeah.
and services for our school district, and she does a fantastic job.
I agree. Thank you. Questions? Okay, roll.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
10.07 is Knox County ESC service agreement, again for special education services.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions about that? No? Roll, please.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Thank you. 10.08 is the Meta SIS support agreement for the 23-24 school year.
So moved.
Second.
And this Meta is not the Facebook Meta. But it is, just like LACA provides services in Lincoln County, Meta provides services in Franklin County. Meta has a whole team designed to support PowerSchool, which is now our student information system. LACA does not. So we have outsourced that service to ESC, or to Meta, for the support of our PowerSchool student information system. And then the LACA agreement that you will approve next has that service reduced from their contract.
And Meta was instrumental in the implementation of that for us as well.
Yes.
So, they're a great support. It's good to have them continue that role.
Yeah.
Any questions? Roll, please.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Thank you. 10.09 is the LACA service level agreement for the 23-24 school year, again without PowerSchools.
Second.
Questions? The roll, please.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Another great aspect of our school district, food service.
Yeah.
10.10 is the annual service contract with ABI.
So moved.
Second.
Chef John does a fantastic job. We're happy to have him in our partnership with ABI.
For those who want your contract for this?
Yeah. So we typically, when we go through the RFP process and rebid, we typically do a long-range contract, like a 5-year contract, and then we approve it annually each year. Yeah.
Good.
And for informational purposes, ABI is also in contract with CTEC for the next school year. And I talked to Chef John, and they're really excited to work with the culinary students.
I think it's a great relationship.
I think it's a really
Yeah.
neat relationship
Yeah.
that they're going to have going forward.
They're not allowed to have him though. Just planting that seed.
The roll, please.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Next item is 10.11, approval of the contract with Armor Paving and Sealing.
So moved.
Second.
We have areas across the entire district that are being repaved. I would say the largest area is the area between our softball field and the tennis courts. That area has been a dirt lot since I've been here. It is now going to be a paved area. Yes. So that we are taking that off the list.
Wow.
So,
Is that one used much during the day as
Oh, yeah.
overflow parking?
yeah,
That form? Wow.
it is. We have a lot of students that like to drive.
Yeah. There's a lot of traffic, which we're going to have to focus on next year, so.
Yes.
Interesting. Are they going to be marked spaces then?
Yes.
For students?
Right now, probably not marked,
Yeah.
just lined, but
Yeah.
in the future, I'm sure it will be marked.
Okay. Great. Any questions about paving? The roll, please.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Thank you. 10.12, approval of contract with Spectra Flooring
So
for
moved.
replacement of floors.
Second.
Is this more for both flooring?
Yes.
Great. Been rolling that through the district as needed and so forth, so.
I walked around all the buildings today and saw a lot of new classrooms with new flooring, and there's going to be a lot of happy teachers.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
removal of carpet.
Okay, the roll, please.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Okay, 10.13 is a resolution waiving competitive procurement based on urgent necessity and approval of an agreement with training.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so this is actually a 2-year agreement for replacement of air handlers at the high school and a boiler and rooftop units at the middle school. It is going to be something that Brittany's going to talk about later in the agenda as our first step in using the capital projects fund. So one of the things that we heard clearly from all the groups that we socialized the concept of capital projects fund 2 was be very specific about allocating the money for a specific purpose and then, spending that money out of that fund. They understood the need and the flexibility that it offers. So you'll see that this will be represented in the financial portion of the agenda as well. But it is almost a $1.8 million spend.
Could you speak to why this is urgent necessity and waiving the procurement based on that and so forth?
Yes, so we do get multiple quotes, however, when you utilize cooperative purchasing pricing, which in and of itself goes through a bid process, you still have to go through basically the legal process of declaring it an urgent necessity. So even though we have gotten multiple quotes, that's still just kind of the process that you have to go through. And it really is an urgent necessity in order to get the second portion of this project, which is going to be completed next summer. They need those items to be purchased and committed to now in order to get them in time for next year, which is great.
And did we commit to that cooperative bidding group somehow or something like that? or is
Yes,
that-
so a lot of these groups don't have any fee to be part of them, so we're part of several.
I know, to me, it seems very similar to our bus purchasing strategy, where we purchase buses whose prices have been negotiated through another organization and so forth, that ultimately results in a lower cost to us.
Correct.
So I see it that way.
I'm a little confused. Train is the manufacturer of, are they also installing?
Yes. They've done that for us before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where are they located?
The actual
It's a national company, isn't it?
Look, that's what I'm
Yeah,
asking.
it's a national company, but they have home offices. So we deal with a regional person, I think, out of Columbus.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big challenges is just kind of scheduling and finding people for some of these things and so forth and getting those things running. So I'm sure they work with subcontractors when needed and so forth, but it seems to be the most effective way to actually get things done
I think-
and the most cost effective as well.
I think the biggest challenge in why we're expanding 2 years is procurement of materials for the larger project takes almost a year lead time. So, that's why getting them committed now, they have the ability to go out and source the materials necessary, so that's good.
Very good.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye. So the next item on the agenda, item 10.14, is approval of a contract addendum for the superintendent.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. This is a part of the regular process, so you'll see one as well for the treasurer when we look at salaries. And as you know, the salaries have been increasing quite significantly with inflation over the last couple of years. We're very proud of our superintendent and treasurer being some of the best in Licking County. And we continually take a look at all of our salaries and benefits for all of our employees to ensure that they're in line with their competitive other positions, both in Licking County and Central Ohio. So both of these addendums have been proposed along those lines. Any other comments about our superintendent treasurer?
Be awesome if we can.
Done and done.
Absolutely, yeah. I believe so as well. So the roll, please.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye. The next item, 10.15, is approval of a contract in for our treasurer.
So, second.
Jeez.
Jeez.
Darn, you're good.
You can tell we're quite enthusiastic because we as well have one of the best treasurers in Licking County and Central Ohio and all over the state for that matter. So thank you for your services. This goes a long way to support you. Roll, please.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Miller?
Aye. Okay, the next item, 10.16, is the approval of a memorandum of understanding with the Granville Executive Village or Granville Education Association related to the inclusion of maintenance, HVAC technician, and computer technician into the CBA, collective bargaining.
Second.
Great.
So,
Go ahead.
this is, obviously, we have had some transition with our outsourced provider. This is an opportunity for us to bring some of our best employees in that world into the organization and secure them for the future. And their inclusion in the collective bargaining agreement is an opportunity for everybody to understand that we want to recruit and retain our best. So,
I alluded to a little bit earlier, just the world of hiring and retaining employees over these last couple of years and things like that has been very dynamic, right? And so in cases where we can retain and hire the best that they're out there, we're very proud of that, and I hope that we can keep that up. So thanks to the organization for making this happen.
In this high growth environment.
yes.
Absolutely. The roll, please.
Ms. Dees?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Thank you. 10.17 are the approval of the job descriptions for the above memorandum of understanding.
So moved.
Second?
Any questions? The roll, please.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Ms. Dees?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
That brings us to our consent agenda, so 11.01A through D.
Nice long agenda, including the addendum.
Yeah, there's almost
Yeah.
26 items in C, which I will talk about as soon as there's a motion and a
Oh,
second.
so moved. Second.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, they're hanging me out there.
You want to get this done?
Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of time walking through this. Obviously, we always appreciate the donations and gifts and grants. So many of these are related to the Aaron Rodgerson Scholarship Fund, which we all understand is near and dear to our hearts. And then, the Granville Education Foundation is always a supporter of the Granville schools. We appreciate them. Items 2 and 3 under C, we are rescinding the stipend for communications and just embedding it into her salary for the future because it shouldn't be a two-step process. So that is the explanation for that. We have a lot of supplementals to approve for the beginning of next year. We have several certified staff contracts, and I need to take the opportunity to thank and appreciate Tanya, the entire HR department, Brittany, our administrators. We compressed, typically our hiring season is February to now, and we compressed it because of the levy, May to now. And there are a lot of people on this list, and I believe that we got excellent candidates. I think I interviewed with Ryan almost every single person on this list, and we have an excellent group of people joining our organization. We lost some great people, but we're bringing a lot of wonderful people into the organization. So this is mostly certified staff.
And I was worried about the fact that we couldn't start this process much earlier with some of the vacancies we knew we would have. But, based on your comments for the folks that are joining our organization, I'm really excited and I'm looking forward to having them here. So
Yeah.
thanks for all the work in a compressed amount of time for doing this.
So I feel like our teaching, our certified staff members are fantastic quality. We did get some experience, which is excellent. And then we have some new talent that's just coming to us from college as well. Classified contracts, we have our computer technician that was referenced earlier, who's been subcontracted through the LACA. Now he's our employee, fantastic. And we have several others. The bus driver is now part of the addendum. He is going to be a sub-driver, not a full-time driver. And then I want to talk a little bit about our administrative staff contracts. Katie Beach is in the audience here tonight. She comes to us from Mount Vernon. She was able to participate in our retreat that we held up at Denison a couple weeks ago. Great opportunity to get to know her. Sarah Gianetto was a fifth grade teacher at the intermediate school and is now moving into an assistant principal role because we used to split that position. Now it's going to be a full-time position, and Josh Quire, who's also in the audience, is moving full-time to the middle school. Brian Petrie is our new Human Resources Director. He is coming to us from Cardington Local. He is not here tonight because he also has a board meeting because he's a superintendent currently. He has 13 years of experience as a superintendent, and he is ready to join our organization and focus on human resources. Very excited about Brian. Scott Lofton is at the back of the room. We like to be lovingly refer to that as the Peanut Gallery now. He's joined the Peanut Gallery, but Scott comes to us with a really interesting path. He was with the Arizona Coyotes in the arena world, and then the Columbus Blue Jackets. Then he went into the public side with Gahanna for 7 years, went through several large-scale building and facility projects there. And he comes to us with a wealth of experience. We're extremely happy that he's joining our organization. And then there's also a person that is a familiar face, and apparently we like to hire Scots. So Scott Carpenter is going to be our transportation supervisor starting September 1. He is retiring from the principalship over at John Glenn, and he is sitting out 60 days and has agreed to be our transportation supervisor moving forward. And so he's very happy to be joining the organization again.
And where is he tonight? Sorry, Scott.
Yes.
We only allow one Scott at a time.
Mr. Carter.
Yes. The next 3 items are related to the exempt employees and administrative salary increases. Again, we do this at the end of the year annually for the next year, so we're recommending a 3% salary increase for the exempt and administrative employees as well as the administrative stipend. We have multiple extended school year contracts for this summer, and then we have extended contracts for the 23-24 school year. We have a lot of substitute teachers, long-term substitutes, and STAR employee pay increase from $10 to $10.10, which is related to the minimum wage requirement. We have a couple of leaves of absences. We have several retirements, and so many of these people I was able to recognize at the end of the year, staff breakfast, but Laura Pleasance, 4th grade teacher at the intermediate school, is retiring. She notified us the day after the recognition.
Well,
Probably intentionally.
It's still top of the town, because I had a couple 6th graders ask me about it
Yeah.
yesterday, and I was like, I don't know.
So Mrs. Pleasance is retiring, so
Oh.
we have been able to secure and fill her vacancy, but with significant appreciation of service for all those bus drivers and Mrs. Pleasance. Then we have some resignations for some supplementals, and Sarah's referenced there, so she resigned her teaching position as we hire her as our assistant principal. And then we have Tammy Hamby, who also is leaving us, Lisa Allen. So a couple of teachers that we're losing, but we have also replaced them in the same process. So we're sad to see a lot of people leave, but we feel like we have done a great job of finding replacements for those people. And a field trip. So again, many hours of work by the administrative team, Tanya Sherburne, the treasurer's department, while they're short-staffed. I mean, yeah, Brittany. So it's been a challenge, a heavy lift, but I am very proud of this agenda and the people that are on
Sarah Gianotto's on here as a hire somewhere as well?
Yes, she's the assistant principal.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. And, you know, kids over it. That's fantastic, yeah, great. We'll do that and find some great external resources as well. Wow. It's a long list. Busy time. And, yeah, now that there are folks from the treasurer's office on this, what's the status and the timing of the dynamics of the treasurer's office and how's that going? I know that we've been extremely shorthanded with some changes over and things like that, and we're looking forward to having that fully staffed at some point in time here, but it's a busy time of year. How are
Yes.
things going with
So
that?
also impacted by the levy was, we had the resignation of our assistant treasurer almost a year ago and did not replace that position. Waited until we had more information related to funding. Then in the meantime, another individual in the treasurer's office submitted her retirement, which is effective July 31st. However, her last actual day, because of vacation time and other things like that, was this past Friday. Her replacement does not start full-time with us until August 1st. And then another individual in the treasurer's office is on leave right now, and it's also our fiscal year end. And what else did I say? That's all.
Yes.
So,
Right, yes. So just from a personnel perspective, we're grateful that we'll be back up on top of things here soon, but there's going to be a very busy month to close
Yeah.
and more. So thank you for all your work there.
but I do appreciate everyone's patience and understanding and offers to help and everything
Yeah.
like that is much appreciated.
Yeah.
They're completely empty gestures, because we can't do her
That was
job.
good.
Yeah.
No, you can't help, so the office can help.
Yeah. Is there anything I can do for you today? No. Okay, thanks. Just trying to be a part of the team.
Thanks for all your work there, and again, for all the work and all this. I'm looking forward to these folks being in place and having another great school year next year. Any other questions on the consent agenda? Okay, roll.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Okay, item 12.01, approval of the May 2023 financial report.
So moved.
Second.
Any additional questions or comments on the financial report?
No, that was a great summary. Just not much change in the 5-year forecast, but worked well. Thank you.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Thank you. 12.02, approval of the permanent appropriation resolution for fiscal year 2023.
So moved.
Second.
This is our final appropriations for this fiscal year. We just had to make two slight adjustments. One to FSA contribution, that fund, but that's funded, of course, by employee contributions. And then food service, we have some equipment purchases. So we have the cash available, but we hadn't budgeted high enough for that. So it's really just a matter of approving that higher level.
Okay. Yeah. Any questions? Roll.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Okay, item 12.03, approval of the resolution for fiscal year 23, year-end fund advances to be repaid after the fiscal year end.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and this is the annual process because some of our grants, all of our federal grants and the Hillsdale, the mental health athletic grant are operating on a reimbursement basis, and so they cannot end the fiscal year on a negative cash status, so we have to advance from general fund. And that total amount is $48,000 across all those grants, so significantly less, and that's what we've talked about as part of the monthly financial last year with that large HVAC project coming out of the ESSER funds that drove that amount up.
Any questions on that? No? The roll, please.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Excuse me. Aye.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Item 12.04, approval of the resolution for return advance from the building fund to the operating fund.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and this, as I alluded to earlier, is the return of advance. The building fund is what we use for the athletic complex project, so this is the return advance for what we have collected during this fiscal year. So that's $345,000 that we will return to the general fund.
Well, overall, that was a really good process to save the district, money and interest rates and things like that. That's one way that you can benefit from a strong cash position, right, is finding creative solutions like this in collaboration with our private partners and things. So overall, that's been a great process. The roll.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Item 12.05 is approval of the resolution to establish the capital projects fund for the purpose of accumulating resources for the acquisition, construction, or improvement of fixed assets beginning in fiscal year 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we talked some about this at the last board meeting. We've also presented to Finance Committee and our Strategic Planning Task Force about this concept. And really, this is a way, since our permanent improvement fund and the revenue coming into there, our projects and our needs exceed the amount that we have in permanent improvement, so we're having to dip into operating funds for that. Instead of paying that directly out of the general fund and seeing some variances in our year-over-year comparisons for general fund, we are going to transfer to this capital projects fund. It also is a nice way to allow us to track projects over multiple years. As Jeff alluded to, and the next item we'll talk about as well, the train HVAC contract is a multi-year project. So this is the perfect example of how that can work and be advantageous, and we'll still also report on it as part of the monthly financial report and have that level of transparency as well.
So because we're forecasting more capital expenses in the permanent improvement fund, do we anticipate more general transfers, or are they all going to be specific such as this? And project dedicated as opposed to others that might cover many sub-projects?
Yes, so for this year, this was a nice way to divide it up because we did have this large project. Next year, it might be several smaller projects that we'll have to approve a general fund transfer for to the capital projects fund. But my goal would be to be as specific about it and transparent as we are for this example. The other thing too is we'll have, and this probably doesn't mean a lot to you, but we'll have certain special cost centers which track the cash. And the reason for that is these dollars have a 10-year life. So we have to spend them within 10 years. So I have to be able to show that this money that's going in today or as of July 1st, that we spent it by 10 years from now. So every time we transfer, we'll have to track it to that level of detail.
That's what you do with the ESSER funds and COVID funds.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah.
Yep.
And that's a great best practice for managing these finances and being very clear and transparent about it. And so I think that's the right thing to do. Any questions?
No, and I think for me, the example of the public-private on the athletic complex and how you reported that monthly or quarterly, we're able to see where we were and how well we were doing on it and to where we are today. And I think it works out really well.
Okay, Earl?
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Okay, item 12.06 is the approval of the resolution to transfer $1,864,024 from the general fund to the capital projects fund for fiscal year 24.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that is the exact amount of the contract that you previously approved of train, so that's where the dollar amount's coming from.
There you go.
Didn't just pull it out of it.
No questions here? Earl?
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Okay, 12.07 is approval of the temporary appropriation resolution for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, this is, our temporary appropriations allow us to begin spending in July, and then we approve permanent appropriations in September. So this allows us to process checks for invoices as well as payroll beginning in July. We base it based off of our new grant allocations, cash balances and other funds, our debt service schedule, and as far as general fund goes, we look at our salaries, moving those forward based on our salary schedules, new hires that have come in prior to, as well as budgets that have been submitted from departments and buildings. So that is what changes are recommended for 24.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, in a short time. I don't have any questions. Anyone else? The roll, please.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye. I'd like to entertain a motion to enter executive session to consider the employment of public employees or officials.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye. And there will be no actions after the executive session, so thank you all for your attendance, and we'll wrap it up for that. Thank you.